It is Unnecessary Roughness here on Radio Nation Radio 920. And Gary Kubiak, the four-time Super Bowl champ, does join us now on the phone lines. And, Coach, thanks so much for your time. I do appreciate you. And how difficult, if at all, was that to be able to separate football, family, life, and, and not just make it about football all the time since the family was so heavily involved in football?
Well, I think you almost have to. Because you're working. You're so tied up in the National Football League, so tied up in the team that you're working for and trying to win games. But yet, when you come home in the evening or whenever that is in the off season, when you're home a lot, those kids are looking at you. You're their dad. They don't care if you won or lost a football game. So it just kind of became part of the norm. And my wife, she made sure that that's the way things were.
How proud are you of Klint are you that he's able to do that and separate? And I know he leans heavily on his faith as well, but just being able to take that kind of teaching that you gave him and learn from that.
Well, I'm proud of all my boys, man. They're all good kids, and obviously they're working in the National Football League, but they all try to kind of carve their path. But I'm really proud of Klint. The opportunity he's getting is amazing for such a young man. But the thing that's really exciting for me is I know the people that he's going to work with every day. I know Spytek real good. I know Starkey. I know Thuse. Obviously getting to work with Tom and the ownership there. But, for me to know that he's around those type of people, because as a coach, there's no way you can do everything yourself. You got to surround yourself with good people, work for good people, and get in there and battle and have some good breaks along the way. So I'm just really excited about the people that he's waking up every day trying to get things right with.
Gary Kubiak is with us here on Radio Nation Radio 920. Unnecessary Roughness. Tell us about that relationship with John Spytek. I was reading about it the other day, and I know that you guys have a good relationship. But how did that relationship grow? Well,
it was interesting. When I went to Denver in 2015 for the couple of years as the head coach here, the first thing you're trying to do as a head coach is get a real good feel for a building, what you have, and where you're heading. And obviously Elway was a GM, and John and I had a history, and Matt Russell. But Spy kind of became my go-to guy in the building. He was in there working in personnel. He was my guy that I could sit down and really get caught up on exactly what I was facing, what we had, what we needed to do. And, we became very good friends. Starkey, I spent a lot more time with Starkey throughout the years because he had stayed there in Denver for a while. And then obviously Mark Thuse was running all the football operations for me when I was there. So, for me to get on a phone call with those guys and talk about how they're doing things and to help Klint with how they want to do things, it's kind of an easy fit because I know exactly how they want to operate and what they want to get done.
How much did Klint kind of lean on you to help in this process, to go from being an offensive coordinator to now a head coach?
It's kind of crazy because nowadays, most of these teams will do a bunch of Zoom interviews, short Zoom interviews with people throughout the course of the playoffs, and then they decide who they like to talk to again. And then all of a sudden, his process got really long because of the great season they had, the month run that they went on, winning a world championship. So between a little Zoom call there at the end of the season and the actual process at the end, where he gets an opportunity to get hired, there was a big gap there. So my biggest thing was keeping him focused on what he was doing, really keeping him focused on enjoying what the heck he was doing because he was with such a great football team, and he did a hell of a job with that. And really Spy and those guys helped him do that. They were very good with him. They had great patience, waiting till the end with him, and doing a lot of front work for him while he was busy trying to win a ring.
And, Coach, when you made the decision to go from being an offensive coordinator to a head coach, what was the advice that was given to you, and have you passed that advice along to Klint as well?
There's a piece of advice I got years ago, and it's crazy. I was told by a good friend who coached in the NFL for a long time, who's a head coach. He told me, he said, "Koob, just remember this, it'll get done." And I had no idea what the hell that meant until I became a head coach. And you go through every day and you're saying, how am I going to get all this done? And you just have to trust it, trust the process. It's overwhelming for everybody. And, but you just keep putting one foot in front of the other each day, and surround yourself with good people, and eventually, before you know it, you turn around and you're playing again next year.
Was there a moment when you got that job as the head coach that you kind of sat there and said, okay, now what do I got to do now? I got to put my staff together. I got to do all this. Did it ever become almost overwhelming at times?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And for me, I was coming back to my hometown. I grew up in Houston, so that was had a lot of people here tugging on me and those type of things because, this is where I grew up. But no, it is that way. And you just have to remind yourself each day that, hey, all I can do is my best, and get up every day, give it everything I have some small victories each day. You're from a hiring process, you're late in the game, and that's just part of the deal. I mean, it's just the way it worked out. There's nothing you can do about that, but you have to stay patient and make decisions and hiring good people. And before you know it, players start coming in and all your football coaching stuff, your instincts take over. But there's a lot on your plate, and the best way to deal with that is relying on good people that you're working with every day.
Coach Gary Kubiak is with us here, Raider Nation Radio 920, Unnecessary Roughness. I asked Klint the other day about the wide zone, the zone blocking scheme and how so many running backs really succeed in that. Why is that, Coach, that it's so hard for defenses to stop that wide zone running scheme?
Well, I don't know so much that it's the wide zone. I just really think it's a belief in football of how you're consistent, how you win, a belief in offensive football. I grew up under Coach Shanahan and Alex Gibbs, one of the great offensive line coaches to ever do it. And, our belief was that if we could run the ball every week, that's good for our team. Running the ball well gives you a chance to make big plays in a pass game. So I would describe it more as a philosophy type belief that you think it's the key to being a consistent football team and winning games.
What do you need? Like, what are the non-negotiables as far as like offensive linemen that are trying to execute that scheme?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think we've done it with all kind of guys. People used to say we played with smaller guys, more athletic guys. I don't know that always held true, but the key to good offensive line play is there's 5 guys working together every play, and if you can find 5 guys that are on the same page. Guys that are available every week, guys that are holding up throughout the course of an NFL season, and you've got a great teacher in that room, whoever that ends up being, then that gives you a chance for consistency. I mean, if you're not good up front, it doesn't matter how many quality skill players you have, they're going to have a hard time being successful.
What is it about, Coach, what is it about Klint, your son, that has made him so adaptable when it comes to the different quarterbacks he's worked with, whether it's Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, Derek Carr in New Orleans, Sam Darnold this year in Seattle? It just seems like he's able to bring the best out of all those guys.
He's worked for some really good people, guys, and that's the key to becoming a good football coach, because that old saying, there's all kind of ways to be successful, but you go back, I mean, Clint's been with Kingsbury before. He's been with North Turner before. He's worked for me. He's worked for Kyle Shanahan and sat in those meetings and watched Kyle game plan and watch Kyle call games, and then he gets put in situations working for Zimmer in Minnesota, working in New Orleans under defensive coaches. So you just develop, I think, your philosophy. You develop your confidence and what you want to be, and you do it over time by sitting there watching great examples.
Coach Gary Kubiak is with us here, Raider Nation Radio 920. We have a mutual friend between the two of us, John McClain, and he always sings your praises here on the show, and said you were one of his favorite coaches that he covered there in Houston. and he said he wasn't a rah-rah guy. He wasn't a guy that got up there and, just demanded the room, but you got your message across. How were you able to do that without being, the loudest voice in the room?
Man, you got to be yourself. I mean, if you're not yourself, those players will see right through that. I've played for some of the greatest coaches in football, and some of them like to holler a little bit, and I've played for some guys that very seldom raise their voice. It really gets down to teaching. How good a teacher are you in the room? How well prepared are you when those players walk in a room and you're trying to install an offense or install a game plan? That's what players respect. So I just encourage everybody, if you're going to coach, be yourself, be your best self.
When you become the head coach, you obviously become the CEO of the team as opposed to just, say, the offensive coordinator. How difficult is that to kind of transition and take on that whole umbrella?
Yeah, it's difficult, but everybody gets a chance to be a head coach someday, or when they get a chance, because you have a specialty. So whether you're an offensive guy or a defensive guy, there's some side of the ball that you have a lot of confidence in, and you've been doing it for a while. So what really happens when you become the head coach is you're able to, you can stay focused in that area because that's what you've been doing, each and every day. But now you can branch out to, defense, special teams. Give yourself more time to spend that time with your team, because you do have a confidence level of handling the other, if that makes sense. So really, everybody gets a chance for some reason, from what they've done in the past, and you never know. Is your coach a defensive guy, an offensive guy, a special teams guy? You never know. There have been all kind of guys be successful, but you have to be able to hang on to that thing that got you there and keep that moving in the right direction.
So we know that your son loves football. He loves to talk some football. But when he's not talking ball, what is Coach Kubiak talking about?
Probably talking about them 4 kids, man. He got a house. He got a house full, boy. He's got a beautiful family. He's got 4 young kids, and they've had to move a few times here in the last few years. But it's kind of part of the business. But he loves grinding. He loves coaching. He loves teaching. And I know he loves that family. So between those two, I think it'll keep him pretty busy.
At what point did you realize, and all your boys are in the football in some capacity, when did you realize that Klint wanted to be a coach and end up being eventually a head coach?
Well, I could kind of tell, as he got going. But when he worked for me for a year in Denver before I stepped away, and I think what happens to all of us as ex-coaches, when you step away or you get removed from the game, from the outside, you watch your son or your sons work, and you can tell right away just how hard they're pushing to, make it a career, so to speak. So I could tell after a couple of years being away and sitting here at home and watching him coach at other places and, getting those phone calls every day, I could tell how wrapped up he was in his career and what he wanted to do. And, you just try to encourage him. It's a hard business, very difficult to win and be successful, but I just always encourage him, if you coach for the right reasons, if you coach because you want to make a difference in players' lives and you want to make a difference in people's lives, then you'll be fine. So I'm excited that he coaches for all the right reasons.
Coach, where did you learn that philosophy from, coaching for all the right reasons and making a difference in people's lives?
Well, I tell you what, you find out real quick, because you're not going to be happy all the time. I mean, it's just the NFL is so hard to win. So if your priorities aren't in line, and if you can't stay focused when you go through rough patches, I'll tell you somebody who told me something one day, and I don't want to get too long-winded here, but John Elway's dad, Jack, who was a coach for a career, he told me one time, he said, Gary, if you ever get to the point where winning is relief and losing is misery, then you need to get out of the business. You need to be coaching for the right reasons and making a difference in these players' lives, and that will always stick with me.
That's awesome. That really is, and I think that we could put that in perspective in our everyday lives as well.
There
right?
You go. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can say that for radio. If this ever just becomes a job, then I better get up out of it. It doesn't pay enough, Coach, for me to sit here and not be happy with what I do. And, again, got Coach Gary Kubiak with us here at Raider Nation Radio 920. Just got a couple more quick questions for you. Just, kind of trying to get to know Klint a little bit more as he gets, saddled in with what he's going to be doing with the Raiders. He mentioned he saw the Raiders. He always, knew about the rivalry from the other side of things, and now he's on the Raiders side of things. How much do you think that maybe even kind of helped him just understand who the Raiders were before he ever entered the building?
Yeah, I think we all grow up as fans, that's just, part of the game, something that you did as a young kid. You related to teams, you related to players, and those type of things. So, the Raiders obviously have a huge history in the National Football League, and now they've been through some rough times. And, you're trying to get a group of people together that can come in there and get that heading in the right direction again. So, It's a great motivator. I mean, there's only 32 teams in the National Football League, and so there's 32 opportunities to go out there and make a difference. So very fortunate for him.
So is there going to be a cameo by Gary Kubiak in Las Vegas? Are we going to see him at Allegiant Stadium soon?
I think I may make some visits. That's okay. But I got my iPad yesterday, so when he sends me my assignments and asks me to look at something for him, I'm going to enjoy doing it. But no, I'll just be a big fan, and I'm looking forward to watching the group he puts together, and can't wait to get down there and come watch a practice or two.
Well, I'll tell you what, we can't wait to see you come down here and check it out. We can't wait to see how this whole thing is put together. I've had a ton of text messages already saying, hey, make sure you tell Coach Gary thank you for his son, because Raider Nation is really behind him and feels positive about the direction this team is going.
Well, that's very nice of you guys, man. Y'all have a great day. Nice talking to y'all.